edge of space, calling us to fly away. Don't you be afraid, everything will change. You and I, jumping off the edge. They say dreamers never die, so come and fly, come and fly, come and fly away with me. We're rising, we're falling, we're making moves. We're climbing, we're soaring, 1,000 views. We're rising, we're falling, we're making moves. We're climbing, we're soaring, 1,000 views. Come and fly away, come and fly away, come and fly away with me.
Hey. I know I'm starting a little early, guys. It's okay. Just gives us a little extra time to wait for people to get in here. Hello, Lori. How are you today? Audrey should be getting in here soon. Hopefully there's nothing wrong with the... Nobody's here.
Standing here right by your side, I will be standing here till the end of time. I will be standing here all through the night, till the stars align. Something's gonna bring the change. Journeys we are meant to take. Something at the edge of space, calling us to fly away. Don't you be afraid, everything will change. You and I, jumping off the edge. They say dreamers never die, so come and fly, come and fly, come and fly away with me. We're rising.
Hey, Audrey. Sorry about that.
Hey,
I was
that's
having
okay.
I was having technical difficulties, and then a car alarm started going off.
Oh no.
Yeah, and nobody seemed to be tending to it, so I had to do something. So,
Okay, no problem. No
how
problem.
are you today?
I am well. How about you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I am sitting outside, so if you hear little kids playing in the background, just appreciate the fact that children are playing.
Right?
That's all I can say.
Right, no problem.
Hello, May May. Hello, Kathy, Lori. So of course, we'll give it a few more minutes, let people get in here.
Sure.
I made sure you went and watched your video that you did on Troy. Now,
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Because I've been seeing it both ways. So I've been spelling it both ways. It is pronounced Khoeler, right?
Yes.
Okay, is it KH or KOEH?
KH.
Okay, just making sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Corey. And so that was one of the questions I was going to ask you also, was about why he didn't have the Thompson name or Thomas name.
That's something I want to talk about because I'm not certain.
I just thought that was really strange that he had a separate name than his.
Yeah. And when he was actually, I researched it, he was actually adopted out of Dallas County, which I don't know why, because they live in Harris County. And a foster child placement, typically you wouldn't get a foster child placement from Dallas County. Harris County has plenty of their own.
Right,
so
right.
I'm not sure why they used an attorney out of Dallas County. I have no idea. But when he was actually adopted, the grandmother posted a picture and she put, "He is finally a Thomas." And she said, "Welcome to the family, Peyton Troy Thomas." And on a couple of his birthday cakes, they put Peyton. And then I saw one where they put Troy. So I have no idea why. I mean, and it must be legal because, I mean, even the coroner's using that name. That's the name the medical examiner has.
What, the Khoeler or the Thomas?
Khoeler. Which I can only presume that that's his birth name.
Right.
But why you would leave him with his birth name after being adopted, I don't know. I mean, I've been involved in plenty of adoptions as a guardian ad litem, and I've never had a family not at least, I mean, sometimes they change their whole name if they're younger, but they at least change their last name.
Okay, and that was something I was going to ask you. Do you have another app open, honey? Because I can hear just an echo every now and then.
Let me look and see.
Did you leave your YouTube open?
No, YouTube is closed, but I have a couple of tabs that shouldn't have an audio, but I'm going to close them out anyway.
Oh, okay. But anyways, if you don't mind, do you mind letting us know, not that it's important, I'm just asking out of curiosity, what your title is or titles?
Sure.
If you're allowed to say.
No, it's fine. I can. Let me go back a little bit further from what I'm currently doing. Previously, I worked for the Department of, or the Texas Department of Protective Services, which includes CPS, child care licensing, APS, all those regulatory agencies. And I worked there. When I left there, I was an abuse neglect supervisor when I left. And I left because it was just, it's just too it was just too stressful. It was just affecting my life too much. As an abuse neglect supervisor, I had a unit of 7. They were split up. I had 3 inspectors and 4 investigators, and I just couldn't do it anymore. It was consuming my life, and because we were always so short staffed. So I left there, and when I left, I still had that passion. And so I went to the court system, and now I'm just a guardian ad litem assigned through a judge for children that are in state care.
Okay, I always assumed a guardian ad litem had to be an attorney.
No, that's in Texas. That's an attorney at litem.
Oh,
and
really?
And a child gets both.
Hmm.
When they come into care, they get a guardian ad litem, and then they get an attorney ad litem. So they are assigned both.
Well, I have never seen. I've only ever seen a guardian ad litems, and they have been attorneys. So in the state of Tennessee, I'm not saying that's the way it has to be, but that's all I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, I guess a lot of different agencies do it differently. I can tell you that the attorney ad litems that I have worked with typically only handle the legal aspect of it. They're not visiting the child on a regular basis, going in the homes, doing all of those things. Attorney ad litem's basically here in Texas just handle the legal aspect of it, and then expect an update from me. So that's just basically, yeah.
Okay. Now that we got that out of the way, like I said, it wasn't that it was important, but it's just to let people know, that you do know what you're talking about when it comes to certain situations.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, so in your opinion, okay, first of all, the dad, Troy's dad, or his adopted dad, left earlier that, I wouldn't say late that evening or early night. Is that correct?
We don't know when he actually left, because they're not giving us anything. I mean, I've reached out to Harris County Sheriff's Office twice now, and I'm getting nothing from them. And I reached out to the responding, because Precinct 4 through Harris County is the responding officers. But then once they realized what they were getting into, Harris County took over. The precinct, just like constables. Yeah. And so then the sheriff's office got it. And they're not telling us anything. But what we do know is mom left for work at whatever time. She works at, I think it's Methodist Hospital in Houston.
Okay.
And she's like, just like in the registration or something like that. So she went to work. Dad works at another hospital in Houston as a cook. So he works in the kitchen. But we don't know what time he left. All we know is he came home about 11:45 p.m. And the report, mom gets home about 4:30 a.m. And I don't know if that was her normal time to get home or if he called her, because none of that's been released. But nevertheless, she got home, and then 911 was called, 5:20 a.m. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, you would think that when he got home at a little before 12 midnight, that he would have seen the child if he was innocent, he would have seen the child gone and would have called immediately.
Right, absolutely. And his demeanor, okay, so they did take them and they detained them, for questioning, and then they brought them back. The police brought them back to their home, but they had them separated. Right. So they were not together. And mom was distraught and refused to talk. And he got kind of caught by a journalist. And what he said was just so bizarre. He said that he got home about 11:45 and that he was trying to demonstrate that he had his keys, but at the time he didn't have his keys when he was demonstrating it. But he said he had his keys and he went to put his keys in the door, and then the door just opened. And then the weird part was, after that he says, and I don't know anything else. I don't know anything else from there. I don't know anything else. And he walked off.
Wow.
And that was just it.
I can't believe they have it. And it did state in the report, I don't know if it's true or not, but it stated in the report by that news station that they had prior problems with CPS.
Yeah, and that could mean one of two things, because the department hardly will ever tell you, excuse me, anything. And so with them being foster parents, and I mean, they did have dealings with the department. So some people are saying, well, that just meant that, they knew who they were, because essentially they were foster parents and then they adopted, which then to me is, then why do we have Dallas County involved? because
Right.
I've got the law firm actually where they adopted from, and it was in Dallas County. It's the law office of Courtney Wortham, and there's a picture and everything. So, I don't know. However, I can tell you this much. It would not surprise me if they hadn't had prior reports called in. And the reason I say that is because the one teacher who is talking, that she had, she knew him. She wasn't his exact teacher, I don't believe, but she knew him from school last year. She said that someone said something about him being left home alone, and she said, well, that doesn't surprise me. And so I thought, there had to be a reason for her to say that.
Right.
So,
But I mean, who leaves a 6 or 7-year-old kid at home, period?
I have no
And
idea.
I had a lot of comments over on my video, that video that I put out the other day saying, well, the siblings, they could have been playing, hide and seek. The siblings could have shut the lid. There are no other siblings.
No.
There's no other children
One
in
child.
the house.
One child.
Right.
One child. And it was my understanding from digging through with some family members, just like social media and things, I don't think that they could have children. So, and the grandmother, her name is Denise Andrews, and she had made a point of saying, that she was so excited that she had a grandson, and so I don't think she had any other grandchildren either, because she had 2 children, Tiffany the mom, and then Tiffany has a brother.
Right.
And I could be wrong. I'm just speculating just off of what I read. But grandmother had lots of pictures of Troy on her page.
Right.
Lots of comments about him, all of that stuff. So
Okay. I noticed that you said that the mom, and we don't know that this is a direct connection, but we're pretty sure of it, that the mom, after all this started, they sort of locked their own Facebooks down so that nobody could comment or whatever. But
Right.
Mom disassociated herself with Dad.
Yeah, and that was weird to me because I was looking on it for something else. Because when you first go to her page, because her page is up, she had deactivated it and she put it back up. And when you go to it, the first several posts are like merchandise. So she must have been like into reselling things.
Right.
You have to scroll down and scroll down. And I was looking for something. I don't remember. But then I realized, I was like, wait a minute. And so then I looked at her, about section, and it had previously said married, and now it says no relationship information. So then I did a search through her page for the name Jermaine. Nothing came up. I did a search through for husband, and I mean, there's no more pictures of him. There were pictures. And I don't know. It's weird to me that occurred.
Yeah. That would be. And your theory, can I ask your theory of what may have happened? And this is alleged, folks. This is all
Absolutely.
theories.
Yeah, it's honestly, I don't know. My gut, which I feel like the dad did something, and I don't know that it necessarily involved the washing machine. I think that could have been a hiding place until he could do something else, move him somewhere else. But I feel like the dad, something's going on with the dad, and Mom was at work. And I did get confirmation from a coworker of hers that she was at work all night with her.
Right. Well, I had already assumed that we had confirmation she was at work.
Yeah.
And I really, truly, in just a gut feeling, no more than what I know about it, I'm pretty sure Mom didn't have anything to do with this.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think she did. I think it was Dad.
I think so too. And although I know you said you think something may have happened to him and then he was put in the washer, I do not get that feeling from the way that, how do you pronounce that cop's name? Robert Munchy.
Munchu.
Yeah, Munchu. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The way he kept, every time something was asked about the washer specifically,
Mm-hmm.
he would say no comment. We
Mhm.
can't comment on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I get the most horrid feeling that you can get from that.
And I guess I don't want to go there because the thought of that, I mean, anything they do is horrible, regardless.
Yes.
But the idea that the child was alive and you put him in a washer and you start it.
Well,
you
I would like
him
to
in.
know. Say, other people have said, somebody was asking that officer that could he have smothered. And now I don't know about. I've not seen a lot of top loading modern day washers.
I have that exact washer.
Okay, does it seal when you shut the door?
No, you have to push a button like on the panel. They're flat buttons to start it, and you have to push that thing hard. I mean, sometimes mine frustrates me because I have to push and push and push to get it to finally engage.
Right.
So it's not something that could be accidentally bumped
Right.
and start. And unless there was some kind of malfunction with that lid.
So I mean, with a top loader, we know it doesn't seal to keep the water in. So therefore, I don't believe he could have smothered. If he was awake and conscious and put in the washer, unless the button was engaged, a 7-year-old could have kicked the lid open. They could have reached their hand up and pushed it open.
All he would have had to do was stand up.
Exactly. So either the child, and I hate saying this, but either the child was not conscious when they went in the washer, or he was conscious and the door was shut and locked, because that was also something that they said they couldn't comment on, whether the door was open or not.
Right. And it doesn't have, people like it. There's no agitator in it. It's just one of those great big barrels. So as far as he could fit in it fine, because there's no agitator in the middle. It's just a big barrel. But as far as how the door would get locked, I mean, somebody had to do it.
Right.
He couldn't have done it. And you can't. I should have tried this with my washer, and I haven't done it. But I don't even think you can push the button and then close the lid.
Right.
Because I always do everything, close the lid, then push the button.
Exactly. I mean, that's how everybody does it. Yeah.
So, I don't know. I guess I could check that and see. But I don't even think like he could push the button and then close the lid and it would lock. I don't think it would.
My ranch says, and I believe that this is who actually commented, said my grandson was locked in the washer. Thank God the other siblings seen what happened. He is 7 years old.
Oh, wow.
But
wow.
How did he get locked in the washer, my ranch? I mean, did the other kids push the button? What happened? Well, are you going to answer, sweetheart? But I mean, I'm sorry, I just don't see it. If there was other siblings in the home, maybe.
Right. Well, and the time of day is just odd to me too.
Exactly. You might have even said it could have been a neighbor kid being over there playing.
Right.
But not in the middle of the night.
Right. Exactly.
My ranch says I'm not sure that I just know it was locked. Huh.
That locked behind him, she said. So I guess when it got shut. But these are fairly new washers, and there's a lot more safety mechanisms that they put in these things nowadays, to prevent things like that. So, I don't know. I see someone had asked what brand of washer, and it's an LG.
Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I just happened to look over because I was looking for the answer from my ranch. So.
I can open my door even when my machine is off. Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, do you mean you can't open the door even when the machine was off? Yes, Laura Down, it is very scary. It's even scarier to know that there are people out here doing things like this to the kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why I started the pay, which is why I even have a channel, is because what I was noticing is certain cases get huge publicity. And then there's other cases that get none.
Right.
And so that's why it's telling their stories. And I do have a playlist which is telling their stories of children who have lost their lives to child abuse. And some of them are personal to me, people that I knew. And then, others are work related. I cannot share anything regarding any advocacy work I do. So anything on my channel would never be related to that.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like I say, guys, if you're coming in, hello, I appreciate you being here. If you
Hi,
hear children, I'm outside. There's a baby crawling up second story steps right now. Oh. Come here, sweetheart. Come here. Come here. Do you got him? Her? Him? No, you don't. Come here. Where's mommy or daddy? You want to tell her to get the baby? Hold on, guys. Oh, stop. Come get him. Honey, these are concrete stairs and he's a baby.
And it's pretty high up here.
That's right, it is. Oh,
Well, that was scary.
yes. Sorry about that, guys. Oh,
Goodness.
that was the mom. Oh, we walks downstairs all the time. Had to have been maybe a year and a half, if that.
Oh my. Wow.
I so apologize, guys. Like I was saying though, if you guys hear children playing in the background, let's be thankful we hear children playing, is all I can say. You'll have to overlook the sounds, but be thankful we hear them.
I love to hear children play. So
It has
that's
been
music
so
to
long.
my ears.
Mine too. It has been so long. I mean, you're talking a few years since I've heard children out in a yard yelling and playing and laughing.
Right.
It's just awesome. And the first time I saw it after I moved here, I told somebody I was talking to, I said, I wished it wouldn't look perverted. And I said, I would videotape it and put it on my channel because it's just beautiful. But then that's perverted. So you can't do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So let me tell you like a little bit of let's see, the area that Troy lived in, they had just bought that home. They had only been there for 3 weeks, and it's in a neighborhood that I'm very familiar with. And I used to live in Spring. I don't anymore. It's about an hour and 45 minutes from me now. And I just had, because it was an area that I knew, I just had to go there. So I drove there, and there was only one car in the driveway, which is, I later learned that's mom's car, and it's been in the same spot since this happened. It hasn't moved. I talked to a young neighbor boy who told me they weren't there. I had kind of expected there might be some things in the yard.
Yeah.
Like where people leave things. I knew another little boy had been interviewed, and he had said that, they were taking something down there. It wasn't there. So I just left the teddy bear there, sat there for a little while, and then had the opportunity to communicate with, it's a lady. Her mother lives like, I think diagonal or something from them. And so she's been watching the house. And she said there's been absolutely no activity except for dad coming in a pickup, and they backed up and he loaded stuff from the garage, which totally gives me the heebie-jeebies because I couldn't walk in that garage again. I don't know how they did that. But mom was not with them, and he got some items, like personal items, and left, and nobody has been back. So
I can't believe they haven't arrested him yet.
I know. And the autopsy, because so he was not showing up in the database, and so I finally put in an official inquiry, and I didn't get it back to me because Harris County hadn't got back to me, but I actually did get an email, and then after I got that email, I got the actual report, and now it does come up in the database, but it says that his death certificate is ready. However, the manner of death is pending, and the cause of death is pending. There's no primary cause. There's no contributing cause. And he's been transported, which means that a funeral home, crematorium, or something, he's already left the morgue.
That is really odd because every time I've ever dealt with having to have an autopsy done, they always say you have to wait till the autopsy is done before you can get the death certificate.
Yeah, what I think, well, I know that I had an aunt who was murdered in Houston 30-something years ago. And the guy that she was dating said that it was suicide. And he said that, or the S word, that she had done that, unalived herself. Well, we didn't believe that and kept pushing for it. And anyway, they ended up, because her death certificate said undetermined, and then they came back and amended it later, like months later. Like she passed away in March, and it was not amended until November.
Really?
So, yeah. But I just can't imagine that they just could let him just like walk through, like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense to me either. It's unreal.
I don't understand it whatsoever. And I have tried to see if I could find some biological family. But
so there's you can't find any biological family either?
None. So, and I thought that perhaps we could with that last name because I assumed that was his birth name.
Okay, my ranch said, okay, I called my daughter to ask. She said the kids were hiding, go seek. 7-year-old got into the washer and the other kids couldn't find him until they heard he was banging to get out. Dad had to break the lock. So we still don't know how it happened.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you, my ranch, for trying to find out.
Yeah. That's so scary. Thank goodness. They were able to more in there.
Thank God in heaven above.
Mm-hmm.
But that being the point, you can hear if a child got locked in the washer, you would be able to hear it.
Yep. Yeah. Unless Dad wasn't home.
I still think there's more something hinky going on there.
I think something happened and then he left. I think he did something happened to that child, and then he left the home. And then when he comes back, that kind of gives him a little bit of an alibi, so to speak. It doesn't excuse leaving the child at home, but he says, oh, the door was open. Like, right. Somebody's going to come in, kill your child, and put them in the washing machine.
In your house.
Right. And there's no sign of any kind of robbery, burglary, nothing.
Right.
So the only motive would be someone coming in your house, doing that to your child and putting them in a washing machine, or putting them in a washing machine and leaving and locking the door.
Right.
And then leave the front door unlocked when they leave.
Can I ask you a question? It's sort of off the subject of Troy, and I'm not trying to divert away from him, but there are so many. Did you get to see the press conference on Harmony today?
Yes.
Okay. In your opinion, you've dealt with a lot of this. It was biological evidence that she had been unalived.
Mm-hmm. I think it was blood. And I think that it was enough, enough blood that they determined that someone that lost that large amount of blood could not survive. It's either that or already decay, like
Or
decomposition.
what about like I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but brain matter? Because remember, they did take stuff out of that apartment besides the refrigerator.
Yeah, they took pieces of the wall and they took some flooring.
Because if they find brain matter, if I'm not mistaken, if they find brain matter, then they assume the person is gone.
Sure,
Right?
Sure. Yeah, especially with there being no record of medical treatment. So yeah, absolutely, it could be brain matter. I have seen it only with blood.
Right. Okay.
But it very well could have been, and it's not like of course, when we were watching them bring stuff out that day, we really couldn't see that much. Like they had everything wrapped and stuff,
In the tin containers, the
Mhm,
paint cans,
mhm.
basically is what we're calling them.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's Sleuth Mom. She was actually looking up what they use. Forensics uses the different containers to, transport the stuff. What do they transport in this, and what do they transport in that? And that's, yeah.
But that's a good point. It could have been brain matter. I didn't even think of that. So that's a good point. It could have been that.
Well, I'm just thinking if there was signs of that much blood,
Yeah,
they would have noticed it. The people that lived in the house.
you would think. I don't know. That whole thing is just
right. But if it was brain matter, it wouldn't take much, to say, okay, this is brain matter, and if that's here, then more than likely she's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel so sorry for those people that lived in that house and used that refrigerator.
I can't imagine.
I can't either. I could not.
I can't imagine. I don't know.
Can I pick your brain about something else real quick?
Sure.
Your experience, and if you can't say or do not want to say, that's fine.
Okay.
You followed the Summerwells case.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know where to start.
Right? That's why I was like, what are you gonna ask?
Okay. Say CPS was coming that next day. What do you think they were doing? Do you think they were closing out a previous case?
Well, it just depends, because I have heard that Candace tended to avoid CPS.
Right.
So they could have been trying to do just a follow-up. It could have just been a follow-up. Typically, when you close out an investigation, it does not require a visit. You just take your follow-up visit, and then what the parents have done, the changes they've made, and blah, 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 verify all that stuff. And then you can close it out, and then you just send them a letter in the mail. I usually had my staff, and then when I was doing it, we would call them. But technically, you just required to send a letter in the mail saying that it's closed and you're good to go. People saying that they were there to pick up the children, I can tell you now, I'm just speaking from Texas, okay? Because I've never worked in Tennessee, so they may do things completely different. But most social service agencies work their policies because their goal is the same. So most of their things are very similar.
Right.
And you don't ever warn a family that you're coming to remove their children.
Exactly.
You don't. So they would not know that.
But
you can't tell them.
They do notify you when they're coming to do a home study.
Yes. Okay. Like during an investigation, they try, like allegations have been called in, they try not to let you know they're coming. Okay.
Right.
So they'll go make visits. But if Candace was avoiding them, so to speak, and they went out there so many times and they couldn't get her, then they would have to call and say, okay, look, we're coming on this day. We need you to be home. Or you leave a card on the door, and, with your phone number, and write a note on the back of the card saying, please contact me. Because after you've sent your staff for so many visits and they can't get anybody, you can't waste that time.
Right.
So you would notify them for that. But typically during an investigation, you don't want them to know, because whatever is wrong, they could potentially correct it before you got there. They could also warn their children, you better not say a word. So, I don't think that they would have been known about an investigation unless they couldn't get, anybody to respond to them. Then they would notify them. Now, once they are monitoring the family, they do let you know when they're coming. They call and schedule.
Once they have an open service case.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me throw this idea at you and let me get your opinion about it. Because, and I discussed this with somebody else. Okay, back in, I believe it was September, when Allie had to call the law to have her 2 children removed by law enforcement because Candace had threatened to blow her brains out if she came up there.
Right.
Okay, and supposedly the teenagers were drinking and stuff. Now, when that happened, obviously they didn't go to jail. Nothing happened as far as, charges. Would a Child Protective Service case have been opened under those circumstances?
It just depends. It depends on if the officers contacted CPS. Now, domestic violence, like when Donb went to jail that time for the domestic violence stuff.
October 2020.
That will open one.
Okay, so that September, October, that still would have fell within the 6 month if they were closing, because there was rumors they were closing
Okay, wait. It was October of 2020 though, wasn't it?
Yes, and in Tennessee, once a protective service case is open, even if they find nothing, it stays open for 6 months.
Okay.
June would have been little over 6 months, but then you have the problem of Candace avoiding CPS coming or closing them out or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's feasible that may have been what they were coming to do instead of take the children.
Could have been, but they wouldn't have known.
Okay.
They wouldn't have known.
That's the kind of thing I'm trying to pick your brain, because I would love it if a paralegal, a lawyer, or a CPS worker, I'm not asking for detailed specifics.
Sure.
But tell me what you know about the law as far as CPS goes, or as far as the law goes. Tell me what you know, and that would help the rest of us understand.
Right.
And like the showers in Texas, at CPS, not the law, because I haven't found any law in the United States that says it's against the law. But say you had someone call you up and say a grown man is taking a shower with all 4 of his children. What would CPS do?
Oh gosh. It would
Hypothetically.
Well, it would depend. I mean, you would certainly go out. You would talk to the family. You would talk about. See, this is where you get into a fine line, because there are certain things where you have the freedom to raise your children the way you want to, as long as you're causing no harm. And we have to be really careful that we don't cross that line and trying to teach or tell people, mandate how people parent. So, they probably would have gotten some guidance on it, probably maybe some parenting classes, and told that, this is not a good idea. Maybe boys with the dad of the boys, if that's how you have to do it, or whatever. And it also depends on the age of the child. The younger the child is, the less they're going to worry about it. But the older the child gets, then certainly they're going to worry about it. Now, if they talk to those children and they found out that something went on in that bath that was more than just taking a bath, then we're in a whole new territory.
Okay. So. As far as the boys being seeing counselors, therapists, that kind of thing, they would have started that immediately as soon as they were taken into custody, correct?
Absolutely. And I can tell you that those children, I mean, this is hypothetical because I don't know anything about the boys specifically. Right. I'm just going to tell you hypothetical. What would happen is they would immediately go for a forensic interview. And a forensic interview is more than just a caseworker or an investigator sitting down and talking with the children. Matter of fact, the caseworker and them, they shouldn't even be asking the kids anything before they go to a forensic interview, because you don't want to put anything in their heads. So they go for a forensic interview, which forensic interviewers are specifically trained to do nothing but that. You know, they know exactly how to ask. They know all of that, and it's recorded every time. Now, with kids that young, sometimes it takes more than once, because if those kids have trauma and they've been told anything such as, you know, there's fear, there's guilt, there's wanting to protect parents, there's all kinds of reasons that children won't talk. And so it takes a while sometimes with some of them to get it out of them as to, you know, what's going on.
What to make them feel comfortable and safe enough to open up.
And they typically do them in those advocacy centers where it's kind of nice and cozy, and, you know, the kids feel comfortable. There's toys, there's televisions, there's, you know, and sometimes a forensic interview can last hours and hours, because that person is going to sit in there with that child, and, you know, every 30 minutes they might just get a little piece of the puzzle, because then they're going to play for a while. Right. Because they have to trust you.
Now, as far as the gag order, I understand, and I know a lot of people do understand, anything that deals with minors is confidential. When it goes into court, everyone is made to leave the courtroom except the people that are directly involved.
Right.
Okay, right. So when they put a gag order on the mom and dad, what did that tell you? Hypothetically, in general.
My first initial reaction to that was that those parents were trying to talk to those children about what to say.
Well, we had that actually. Don did admit that he did talk to Joe.
And the gag order came after that.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I do apologize. I know that's not what you came on panel for.
But no, it's fine. Totally fine. Totally fine.
Anything that we can do to help any child, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the knowledge is power. And it also keeps down on the theories and the running amucks about this is what happened, that's what happened.
Right. And another thing regarding the Wells case that I've always, like, when I hear lives and I hear people saying this, I'm like screaming at the computer, like, no. Because they're talking about, okay, when Candace and them, when Ronnie Lawson said that they had lawyered up, okay? And then people were saying, well, that was with CPS. Okay, in Texas, I'm just going to tell you how it works in Texas. Okay, the children get an attorney. Each one of the children get their own attorney, not a group, but each one. And their attorney, that's the attorney at litem. Then they each one get a guardian at litem. And then the parents go and fill out some paperwork, and it's based off of income or whatever, but I've never seen anybody be turned down. The parents get assigned an attorney. Now, that attorney is strictly for that CPS case. That's all they're for. They will not give you guidance on anything else. They will not, none of that stuff. So, you know, I've heard people say, well, you know, the state's not going to give them an attorney. They're just going to give the kids an attorney. Well, that's not true. Not in Texas. Now, maybe there they don't do it. But in Texas, especially when you get to the place where you're going to terminate rights, they have to have legal counsel.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah.
Getting into that, what is I don't know if I'm going to ask the right question. What would be the maximum time limit before DHS, Department of Children's Services, says, okay, we're fed up. We're not playing your games no more. We're just going to terminate?
Yeah. Well, you know, I had looked up, it's been months ago where I'd looked up Tennessee's, and I don't know but I can tell you what Texas is, and I can tell you that the states are pretty close. In Texas, you have 12 months to get your act together. 12 months. And there are status hearings in between. Like every 3 months, you'll go and have a status hearing to see if those parents are following that service plan and they're doing what they need to do. And so say you have a parent who has really been working hard and they're passing their drug test, they're going to the parenting classes, they're doing all these things, but they just have one more thing that they need to do. Maybe it's gain employment, or they're living with someone and they need to gain, housing that's appropriate for the children or something, but they've really been trying and they reach the 12-month mark. Typically, our judges, the ones that I work with, always will give an extension in those circumstances, and they'll give them an extra 6 months. So it's a total of 18 months because they got an extension. Now, if you have somebody that comes in, which I had a family like that, and I can tell you that if the judge could have terminated at 6 months, he would have done it because they weren't doing nothing. They just didn't care. Like half time didn't show up. If you have somebody who's not made an attempt whatsoever and you get to that 12-month mark, you're not going to get an extension. So, Tennessee is going to be somewhere in that range. And there's a reason for that. The reason is you cannot drag those kids along. It's not fair to kids. Kids deserve permanency. And if the parents aren't going to get their act together and provide permanency for them, then we need to move on and, terminate the rights and see if, hopefully, and this is what I don't understand. Okay, my role as a guardian at litem, one of the biggest things I do is try to find family members that are suitable to place the kids with. Because it's so much better for the kids if they're appropriate, the family members. Because then they're still with their family, and it's just different. It's like so many of my cases, I've had 4 cases that I was able to adopt to extended family members. And some of them choose to never let the parents be involved in the kid's life. And some of them have chosen to maybe after a couple of years, let them visit. But I don't understand why no family from the Wells were contacted. I mean, like Don has a sister, Sonia.
In my opinion, as far as that goes, I don't believe any family or family friends would be allowed to take those boys until after all the investigations are over, until they find out what happened with Summer.
Sure.
Like I said in my video the other day, they have to make sure that the boys are safe. And if the boys know something.
Right. No, I get that part. I'm just like, when they go to terminate, because I don't know the status of their case. I've heard they've already been terminated. I've heard they've not been. Instead of, like putting them up for adoption with strangers, which I've also heard they're with a foster home that's a very good home. So, if that's the case, then, and they're going to be adopted by them, then that's great.
Right.
But I don't know. Like I look at it this way, like if I had a child in my family who was taken into foster care, not my child, but like, an extended family member, even distant relative, I would be throwing a fit to get that child.
I would too. I mean, it would never even go to that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Amy Lou, who knows the family, she's known them for a while. She says there was no family to take them.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Not that there wasn't any family to take them. No family was interested in taking them, should I say.
There you go. Well, and when you run into that, then there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. So. Okay.
Can I ask you what you think your theory might be about Summer?
Oh gosh, it changes every day. Because it's like, I mean, it really depends. Like my initial and the one, because I have like maybe 3. My initial is that it was some type of accident cover-up. But then the more we've learned about this family, then I looked more into the trafficking and something going wrong. Not trafficking so much as selling her. So probably use the wrong word there, but letting her be used, so to speak.
Right.
And then returned home, and then something happened and she didn't come home. So, I've thought about that. But seriously, there's so much that happens every day. Then we find out this stuff about Jody Sue's son, and in the woods, and you hear all these things and you don't know what's true and what's not true. And I can tell you this much: I do not think that it was a stranger abduction.
Right.
Nobody went up there and took that child.
In Texas, or where you're from the cases that you've dealt with, has there been many? Because when this all first started, everybody kept saying, "Oh no, it's too young. She's too young to be worrying about trafficking," because that normally starts about 11.
I mean, that group, that is correct when you get to that older adolescent, early teen age. Yes, but there are sick people out there, and there are groups of people who prefer younger.
Donb is asking, are gag orders the norm when kids get taken?
Nope. No, they're not, because they're typically not needed.
Exactly, because minors, everything's confidential when it comes to minors, and everybody is, and everybody's shunned out of the courtroom. They're not allowed in there. That's what I've been saying.
Yeah. So no, this was specifically done, and it was done for a reason. And it had to do with the parents, I guarantee you.
Well, like I said, Don Wells did state on, what was it, Doug's channel, that he tried to speak with the oldest child about his sister. And that's when they were told they couldn't come back.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So, yeah, that's, this whole case is just, it's craziness. It's, it's craziness.
It is. And it gets crazier every day.
I know. That's why I said my theory changes every day, because it's like, I think I finally get to the place where I'm really confident of, like, okay, this is what I truly believe happened. And then within a day or two, something else happens, and it's like, okay, well, wait a minute, maybe it was this. Excuse me. So I don't know.
So do you think Donb showed a court date when they put the gag order in place, which was October of last year? Would it normally show up about a year later that they would, show up for court again to finalize anything?
Well, the gag order is going to stay in place for the duration of the case. And so, I mean, unless, say, someone was found in the middle of that and everything came out. But then that's a whole different story. So if Tennessee does like about the 12 months, or even if they do longer, say they did 18 months, even at 12 months, they're still going to have a hearing. Because you're going to have hearings, like I said, we do every 3 months. Sometimes it's for COVID threw everything for a loop. So, and a lot of times our hearings have been virtual. I have an adoption coming up, and it's actually virtual. I'm like, why are we doing virtual now? But but at 12 months, they're going to have a hearing anyway, because they're going to be due for a status, whether it's the completion of the case or not. They're still going to be due for a status.
Right.
So, but I wish. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I wish I knew the exact time frame for Tennessee. I looked it up once, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. Somebody knows. Tell me, y'all put it in chat if somebody knows. But I don't know. I have not seen any action from the parents showing that they have any, besides the little bit of work they did on the house, that they want their children back.
Right. Donby's asking, will the 12-month hearing be a little more strict than the others?
Well, yeah. Well, because at the 12-month hearing, if it's a final hearing, well, then it is, because that's when the determination is made. Status hearings. Okay, let me explain the difference. A status hearing is where you go before the judge, the parents appear, and they say, okay, where are you on your service plan? Because CPS creates what's called a service plan with all the things you have to do. Random drug testing, parenting classes, just depends on like what the problems were. So when you go for a status hearing, they're looking at that service plan going, okay, have you done this? Check. Have you done that? Check. Oh, you still need to do this. And so when you have parents coming for status hearings and there's nothing you can check off on that service plan because they haven't done anything. They don't make their visits to visit their children, or even if they do make their visits, like I had one time who she would make her visits, but all she did the whole time was sit on her cell phone. And she wasn't interacting with her children at all. She didn't play. She might take a selfie with them so she could post on Facebook, but then for the rest of the time, she's not playing on her cell phone and her kids are just in the room. And it's like, this is not what this is about. And so if you have a parent like that during status hearings, okay, the judge and the caseworkers and the attorneys, they're already making notes. So when you get to that final hearing, because they've been warned in their status hearing, you better get your act together. You better get this done, because on this date is when the decision is going to be made. And if you have not done these things, you will not have your children. So if the 12-month was the final hearing, then absolutely. I mean, they're just going to flat out just tell them, hey, you didn't do what you're supposed to do. So.
Okay. Lori says, how will the public find out when the Wells have CPS court?
They, especially in this case, they probably won't. They probably won't. Now here, our hearings are open to the public. We have some judges who, if they're virtual hearings, they'll just do them on Zoom and then delete them after they're over. And then sometimes, like, you can go on YouTube and you can watch some of our hearings because some judges leave them up. But, you know, they're open to the public. All courtrooms are open to the public. So I don't know how Tennessee does it. That would be a good question to call and ask. You know.
Okay. Would there be random drug testing?
Absolutely. And you get, I mean, it's random. There is no warning. There is no set schedule for anybody to, you know, plan some kind of something so that they don't pop dirty. Okay. Go ahead. Well, in Texas, if they refuse, if, like, say they're called and they're saying, hey, it's time for a drug test, you need to get down and go, you got to be there by this time, and it's very short notice, and they don't show up, automatically counts it as a failed drug test, unless they can provide a really good reason why they couldn't go.
Okay. Do you think Don and Candace are hiding behind the boys' court case to keep from talking to investigators in Summers' case?
I think they're using it as an excuse, probably. But even if we weren't in a situation where they had a gag order with the boys, I don't think we would get anything from them anyway. I mean, look what we got when they were on YouTube.
Right. Let me ask you something. Do you think it was a dirty UA that caused the boys to be took?
Probably. I mean, there's probably a lot of circumstances, but that's the easiest way to be able to remove a child.
Okay, one more question for you. Well, I mean, that I can think of right this second.
Sure.
Okay. Say something worse happened to the boys, right? They were abused. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. I was told that if that was found out, they would have to start action right then, filing charges and dealing with it before they went to find out if there was any other neighboring kids or friend kids or whatever that had been messed with. Is that true? Or would they collaborate the whole thing together?
It would not be together because each case is individual. It would kind of depend on what actually happened, the circumstances of it. and then how they were able to prove it. Because you have to remember this. People always say, why are there not criminal charges yet? Why are there, why? If they got taken for neglect, why haven't they got child neglect charges? Well, there's a reason. The standard that CPS or a child welfare agency has to use is like a 5150. It's preponderance of evidence. So if you got, and I say 5150 just to make it, to show how, I mean, typically it's not that. Typically it's a little over here and a whole lot over here. But if 51% of your evidence says this occurred and 50 of it says it didn't, they can still remove your children. Now, in a court of law where it's criminal, you've got beyond a reasonable doubt. So your burden of proof is way higher. So they're not going to file charges unless they can prove them. And there are a lot of things that CPS remove children for that you cannot prove in a criminal court because you cannot meet that burden of beyond a reasonable doubt. So.
Okay. But the boys were taken to a doctor first and foremost as soon as they were taken, correct?
Should have been. And it depends on what the boys said. Because if the boys did, like where did these allegations come from? And if there was no reason to believe that occurred and the children weren't saying it and there was nobody making those allegations, then they probably didn't. They probably didn't take them. Because like a lot of times kids have been in foster placement and then a foster parent notices there's a problem and takes to a doc and then calls and says, hey, I think we need to take them. So, their main concern when they take them is where are we going to put them? Who's going to take them? Right, so unless, now I can tell you this, if it's physical abuse and there's injuries, like a broken bone or something, then they're going to take that child and they're going to do a full skeletal scan, which will show like if there's old injuries that are different stages of healing. And then they will also do skeletal scans on the siblings to see if they have like old wounds, old healing fractures and things like that. So it just depends on the circumstances. If they come in and the allegation is SA,
right,
and they say, there's some physical, then yeah, that's going to be a priority to get them to a doctor. But if they're saying we're taking these children because mom and dad both popped dirty on a UA, they're not going to take them for that. They're not, or to a doctor for that.
Okay. If they find that there was abuse on all three, would that be considered three separate cases or one lump package?
Criminally, I don't know. It would just depend on how the district attorney wanted to handle it, because I've seen it done different ways. Sometimes they'll split them up so that if they don't get a conviction on one, then they still have the other two that they could do. For instance, this is a totally unrelated situation, but maybe it'll help explain this. Like, we had a case, it was a daycare, and I made a video about it. It's on my channel, where she left all the kids at home alone and she went shopping, and these were babies, and the house caught on fire, and all 4 of the children passed away and 3 were injured severely. Well, when she went to court, they only charged her with the one count, the one murder charge on the one, and then she got other charges. But so they could save those other charges in case she didn't get convicted or didn't get a really heavy sentence. They had something to fall back on.
Okay.
So it just kind of depends.
Robin says, if the boys don't want to return to their so-called family, do they have to?
There would be a lot of counseling that went on if you had a child express that. But if a family is found fit and they have done everything that they're supposed to do, and the state says they can have their children, You cannot rightfully take someone's children away from them without grounds to do so. And children can't just say, I want to go live with so-and-so. I mean, you kind of compare it to your child, 9 years old and decides, hey, I don't want to live with mom and dad anymore. Their rules are too strict. So I want to go live with Johnny, who's 3 doors down, and his mom says it's okay. So I'm going to go live there. You can't do that because the parents have rights. And so they have the right to take their children unless they violated something. So if the boys are older, sometimes when you talk about teenagers and they're getting close to that age where, 16, 17, sometimes they will work with them on that. But when you're talking about children at the age the Wells are, if the parents did what they were supposed to do, they can't legally keep their kids.
So it's not like when there's 2 parents fighting amongst each other and the kids can choose.
No, because both of those parents have rights to that child.
Right. Okay. Corey wants to know, she says she's not sure how to word it, but can they get 1 or 2 of their children back, but not all 3 since their cases are separate?
Mm-mm. No, they'll return as a family unit because if the parents met the standards to get their children back, then they've met the standards. So whether they had 1 child or they had 5 children, they've done what they need to do. So they'll get all their children.
Do you think their rights will be terminated?
Yes. I mean, just off of what I know. I mean, I'm just speculating, but just off of what I know and what I've seen as far as their actions, I mean, there just doesn't seem to be any desire to get their kids back. I mean, I even heard that they weren't going for, I don't know if this is true. So we have to keep in mind, there's always things that we've heard that may not be true, but, I heard that because the children were placed like such a long distance from, it would be a long drive, that they decided they weren't going to go because of that.
Right.
Well, then, what's your priority? Your gas mileage or your child? Your time in the car or your child? Well, you're showing me right there what your priority is.
Right.
So I just can't see them giving them back.
Deborah says DW said the boys' case had nothing to do with Summer. If CPS now or knows how they were living, why weren't they taken away before Summer happened?
Good question. And I really can't answer that without knowing everything that was done and what stage they were in with CPS. And the other thing that I have to remind myself all the time, especially back when I was, doing inspections and things. Like, I live a certain way, and I can walk into someone's house, and there's no way that I could live in that house. The way that it's cluttered, it's whatever. But it does not meet the definition. It's not harming the kids. And it's really tricky because you have to put your own biases and your own way of doing things aside, because if that was the case, every dirty house I went into, I would have said, they need to get these kids out of here.
Right.
So I don't know. I couldn't really answer that question unless I knew exactly where they were at in the investigation, what they had done, all of that, and you also have to remember, if that CPS case was started because of the domestic violence, if that was the true reason, then they're focusing on that. I mean, they're going to be doing other things as well, but, it's not like the allegation came in that says, hey, these people are beating their kids. It's, hey, these parents are, arguing and fighting, and there's domestic violence, and the children are witnessing it. So.
And plus, she said during the phone call to 911 that he was going to hurt the baby.
Yeah, she did say that, but I don't think there was ever any proof of that. And then right after that, she retracted what she said.
Right, and she took away the order of protection and went right back to it. Can she is there a possibility where she took the order of protection out because she feared for all their lives and then retracted it and then later on something happened to Summer, could that possibly come back to bite her in the butt? Could she be, it could nothing could happen if something happened to one of the kids. Okay. Donb says, once the case is over with the boys, do you think it will clear the way for Summer's case to proceed?
I hope. This is just my speculation, but those boys are key. They are key to Summer's investigation. And I don't really like talking about the boys a whole lot. But I can tell you that those kids have said things. And you know, that time that who was it? Was it Pruitt that said they're kind of the cases are kind of bleeding together?
Yeah.
Okay. That's why. Because they're using information that they're getting from CPS. That's part of their investigation. Not necessarily what happened to the boys, but what the boys are saying. So they've got it. They can't tell anybody. It's confidential. So
Audrey, I want to thank you so much for coming up here, and I know it was originally for Troy, and we will do the Troy again.
Yeah, well, hopefully we got some answers about Troy, because really right now we don't have anything.
Right.
But I'm going to continue on my channel, and then maybe we can meet up again when we get some kind of resolution to this or get some answers. Because I'm not, I'm going to keep on with him because I'm going to follow that story. So,
well, it's just as bumfuzzling, even though it's only 3-4 weeks old. It's just as bumfuzzling as the Summer case, because there's no arrest been made, no charges been filed.
Yeah, and the thing with Troy that bothers me is we have a body.
Right, and the autopsy has been done, and it's finished.
Mm-hmm. They're just not telling us what it is. They say pending. Well, you know why they're saying pending is because it's part of their criminal investigation. So.
Oh, why? In your opinion, why would they not release the 911 calls in Summer's case?
Because there's discrepancies in this is my opinion, but I think there are discrepancies in statements. And I think that everything is not as it has been presented, and they are holding on to those things because they need them in the investigation, and they're not gonna blow their cover and give away what they got until they're ready to proceed. So, I mean, that's just my opinion.
Right. I'm telling you, Nana, I've always felt like the boys know everything. It's so sad, but I pray for them too. Thanks so much, Miss Audrey. Everybody's saying thank you, Miss Audrey.
Oh, you are welcome, guys. You are welcome.
You are giving everybody a little see into the tunnel that we've been trying to make our way out of for over a year now, with nobody coming and giving us any straight answers of any kind.
Right. Well, and especially when you and the situation that I am is, if I still work for the department here in Texas, I couldn't be telling you anything.
Right. I understand that. That's why I said what I said in the beginning,
I don't work there anymore. The only thing that I'm bound to are the children that I advocate, the court cases that I have. I could never break any confidentiality with those. But that's what, and I want to do it because I want people to understand, because there's so many times that people don't understand the system, and it's so frustrating because I want to tell them, look, guys, and I couldn't when I was working there, because sometimes it's just not explained. So I think that, I wish we could get more people who've worked in different fields, that could come on and tell us things. I wish we had former law enforcement that could come on and maybe explain why they're doing certain things. But
oh, we do, Audrey.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
we do.
You sound as convinced as I do.
We do.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have said that. But you know what I'm saying? Like in all these different cases, like look, okay, just an example. And I know I have a tendency to ramble, so you can just tell me to shut up at any point.
Oh no, honey, everybody's loving hearing you talk.
Okay, well, you know, like the tree company. Okay, you know how everybody's talking about the tree workers cutting down the trees. Maybe one of them took her. Well, all we would have to have is somebody from that tree company that said, look, all 5 of these guys, I'm just hypothetical, they all rode together in 2 separate trucks and they all left together. And, you know, like, and explain their process. Like, nobody is going to pick up a child and put them in a truck with their coworkers. And so, you know, just stuff like that, just to kind of help explain how some of these ridiculous things that get thrown out could not be realistic.
Well, it also would help if we were apprised of some of the facts. Like if they have interviewed the tree company and they do know for a fact that all the guys left at the same time, it would help. But there is rumor that one of them, either I believe he left early or he left later.
I haven't heard that, but what I did hear is that they parked down at the church and then they took their trucks down there and then everybody got their car. Now, if that was the case, somebody could have drove back.
Right.
You know, but I'm sure that law enforcement, I mean, you know, I know that we, you know, Hawkins County, I'm not going to say anything about them. It is what it is. But I do have to trust that law enforcement has covered their bases, especially on something as simple as the tree company. I mean, that's just blatant right there. I mean, Candace said it herself when she was walking with Chris McDonough, and she was like, she said, you know, the tree cutters were here, and I wondered, could maybe one of them take her? Well, that right there tells you, you know, law enforcement, hey, just call the tree company and verify these guys all had alibis and they were where they were supposed to be.
Yeah, that's something else I find a little odd is, and not odd because law enforcement isn't telling us anything, but nobody has an alibi in this. I mean, nobody has proven where they were at.
I know.
I mean, Don says he was at work, but do we know if they actually proved that? Andy B says he was on camera at work all day, but
then somebody else said they saw him.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I mean, the whole case is nothing but mistruths. I mean, so if you have truth in there, it's tangled up in a bunch of lies, and it's like you don't know what is true.
Well, I always say there's a little bit of truth in every lie told,
and there typically is, and you know, and then we have other people that inject themselves into the case and throw kinks in it, and you know, it's so frustrating.
Sweetheart, you're welcome to say whatever you would like on this page as long as it's not rude, crude, or disrespectful. We don't bash other creators and we don't talk about children name-wise under 18. Other than that, if you would like to send a message to Miss Jody Sue, you're more than welcome to. I have not a problem with that.
I left, it's typically not something that I do. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I don't lose my cool. I mean, the job that I did for so many years, you have to be pretty firm and you know, tell it like it is sometimes. But I really tried not to. And then just a few days ago, I don't even remember what she did, but it was my last nerve. So I made a video just for her, and I pretty much said everything I needed to say. I mean, she has done nothing but cause problems for this case.
Right.
She's injected so many mistruths, and she's taken the focus off of Summer and she's put it on herself.
I would love it. I would love it if nothing else, if law enforcement didn't do anything else, if one of them would just come out and say, look, guys, she was lying. The dogs never sniffed her feet.
Yep.
She She's the only person who has said that,
Mhm.
that happened. And everybody runs with it.
Well, and she's also the one who first said about the dog trail, because they were saying the driveway. And then all of a sudden, Jody Sue comes up with it was the dog trail.
Right.
So,
Dave
and then
Rader
the time, she kept telling the time. And if you'll listen at the beginning of when Don was first talked to, a lot of times he would say, well, my neighbor said, well, who was that neighbor? Jody.
Right.
So, I don't know what her motives are. I believe her motives are attention. I really think that she's irrelevant. And she wants to be relevant.
Right.
But, I don't know.
Robin says, but yet the text messages released between Jody Sue and Andy, 10:05 a.m., June 15th, Andy was meeting with someone. How can he be in two places at one time? Exactly.
He can't.
Donb said, if Candace was on drugs when Summer went missing, how would that be handled by CPS?
Well, I mean, that would be handled by CPS, of course, but the other children would be removed, which is, we're pretty much sure that they both popped dirty on a UA, and that was why the kids got removed. But where that would come into play is in a criminal case.
So when does if they go to court, say they go to court on October 26th, and they say, okay, we're terminating parental rights because this, and this happened with the boys. That case then gets turned over to criminal court, correct?
No, that case would be closed. However, information in that case is released to law enforcement if they can use it.
Well, I mean, if the boys were abused, when do they file charges against them for the abuse?
I mean, they could have already done it. I mean, I've seen it both ways. Like, they could wait till the end, till it's terminated, but we call it reason to believe. Okay, so that's the 5150. And so if you do an investigation and 51% of your evidence says it's happened, then that person is listed as it's reason to believe that this occurred. So you pretty much, the CPS themselves have already proven their case. So that's why I said, when he said, I think it was Pruitt, that the cases are bleeding together, I think it's because CPS is just giving them information. And until they get enough on this criminal side to be able to think they can prove it in a criminal court, they're not going to file charges. So they have to have enough to be able to prove it. And I don't know what they're, because we don't know what's going on. We don't know what they have. We have no idea.
Okay, Corey says, if she was on drugs when Summer went missing, how come she hasn't been arrested? Do you have a clue?
I don't know. There's a lot of things that I've wondered why they haven't.
Okay, in normal circumstances, or hypothetically in Texas, if this case had happened in Texas, would the mother, if she was on drugs when the child went missing, would she have been arrested?
Okay, this is the issue with that, though. Okay, if the mother was on drugs, the child went missing, was there a caretaker there who was not on drugs? And they could have said was watching the child, which would have been Grandis or Grandma Candy, whatever.
Grandis.
So I don't know. I also know that when a child goes missing, that takes precedence over everything else. And they're putting all their focus into finding that child, and pretty much they're going to deal with the residual stuff that happened after the fact. And it would depend on how high her levels were on a UA and what the substance was. If it was just weed, they ain't gonna do nothing.
Well, supposedly, from what I hear through the grapevine, allegedly, Don's was full blown, and as far as I know, it was crystal
Okay.
And Candace was just trace because she started to, and then said no,
Okay.
and then they got popped with the drug test somehow or
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
However, that worked.
Yeah.
Deborah says, "Thank you both, but if not a bad accident with these sweet boys being covered up, do you think Summer was sold and both being covered up?" You can reread that again. I don't think I made sense.
No, I get it. No, you're fine. I mean, that would be my next conclusion. And they're covering up regardless of what happened, because the only way they're not covering up is if it's a stranger abduction or she wandered off on her own. And I do not believe either of those things happened. I'm sorry, but I just don't. I don't. And I hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong about that.
Well, Corey says that Candace actually said the boys were watching her.
Really?
And the oldest one was over 12. So
I don't know. I don't think that it was stranger, and I don't think that she just, like, if she would have wandered off, and I've never been there. I haven't come to Tennessee. I've never been Ben Hill Road. I don't know any of that stuff. I depend on Donb for that kind of stuff. So, I don't know, but I just don't see someone coming in that area and taking her. And if she had wandered off with as many people as went out there and was looking for her, I think that they would have either found her or they would have found something.
They would have found clothes, remains, something.
Something.
Even if an animal had attacked.
Yeah, because they're going to leave traces of, the clothes, the whatever, blood. So, so I don't know. But I do believe that since I don't think either of those things happened, so whatever did happen is being covered up.
Right.
Well, to protect your own self.
Exactly. And that's what I've said from the get-go, is the only way that Dawn and Candace aren't guilty is if there was a stranger abduction. Because for one, if she wandered off, which we know she didn't, but if she wandered off, they weren't watching her. Two,
right.
if any kind of an accident happened, it doesn't matter how it happened, what happened, when it happened, there is no child left. That means they did something with her. And at the minute they picked her up and did something with her, they became guilty.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And what parent doesn't, if your child has an accident, even if it's your fault, even if you are drunk off your butt, or whatever, your kid, I mean, I would go to jail for whatever I had done to get my kid help. Like, you call 911, you get your kid the help that they need. Now, even if, because this has happened before, like, even if the child was deceased at the home, like that, whatever happened was so bad they died right there, most parents are in denial when that happens. They don't want to believe that their child is gone, and they want paramedics there, and they want them to keep doing something, do something. I dealt with a situation one time, and the child it was a SIDS situation. The baby died from SIDS, and the baby had been passed away for about 30 minutes before she was discovered. And that mom was convinced it wasn't real. Her baby was not gone, and she screamed and screamed. That hospital worked on that baby for 45 minutes from the time that they got him in the ambulance in the hospital, and then to finally tell her there was no hope. So most parents are not going to be like, oh, well, they're gone. Okay, I guess we need to go bury them or go hide them or do something. Parents don't do that. Like,
parents don't say I'll see him in the resurrection.
Hello.
Yeah.
Like, especially, I could see years down the road when you've kind of lost hope and you think, well, okay, well, if nothing else, we never find them, at least I know I'll see them one day. But when you're talking just a few days or week after your child has been missing and you say that,
It was 3 days.
wrong.
It was 3 days.
Something's wrong.
Donb wants to know, do you think that the vehicles were forensically searched for blood or body fluids?
I would hope so, but I don't know. I would hope so. I mean, that's a law enforcement question, and I mean, you would think. But did they do everything they were supposed to do because they thought this was a child who wandered off?
Exactly. That's been my point. He says that the reason he's asking is because Candace is still driving the Subaru. But remember, I had the Subaru.
I would have thought, I don't know. It just depends on the circumstances, because a lot of times, they'll take the car in or do whatever. But then, let's look at the Casey Anthony case, okay? He tried to get them to take the car in. The grandpa did. I mean, and the grandma said the car smelled like death and all that. And it wasn't until later that they finally did and, pulled up the thing in the trunk and found, fluid or whatever. So I don't know. They should have, but did they? I don't know. That's crazy. That it's just, the whole thing's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
It's crazy.
Well, just like Robin says, it was screwed up from the get-go.
I believe that. And I believe that it's because they figured it was just a little girl who just wandered off and she was going to be found in just a few, found somewhere playing or falling asleep somewhere, and they were going to find her, and that was going to be the end of it. They didn't take it serious. So.
But 9 days in, when they did that press conference, they knew right then, more than likely, she was gone. As in passed on. Because Tim Coop made the statement, be careful when you're searching fields and stuff, because we're talking about a small area where evidence could have been hidden, or she could have been hidden. Yeah. Not where she could hide, but where she could have been hidden.
Exactly. No, I think they know. I think they have a pretty good idea. I just think they don't have all the evidence that they need to be able to prove it. And so, and that's speculation again on my part, because I don't know how Hawkins County, and I'm not law enforcement, so.
No, but we greatly appreciate, like I've said before, we greatly appreciate your insight that you're willingly giving us, because as you said,
absolutely.
I would love it if more people throughout the professional fields that could give us generic insight. I'm not even asking specifics, just generic.
Yeah, hypothetical. This is typically what happens in this situation. Yeah, I agree. I would love to see that.
And
because I have questions for certain things.
Exactly. And you can't tell me, everybody's like, oh, well, they can't damage the case. How is saying this is the law in Tennessee? I mean, it's public record if you know where to look. But how is saying this is the law in Tennessee? How is that going to harm Summer's case?
It's not. It's not. No, and that's why I've said, going back to Troy's case, that's what I've said about why don't police come out and just, because you have a community of people, especially that neighborhood, who are, freaking out, wanting to know what's going on. Why can't the department just, come out and just give a blanket statement, nothing that would hurt the investigation, but hey guys, we're on this, we're, just something that to kind of, I don't know, feel like there's a connection, you know what I mean, between your community and your law enforcement. And because I think that's so important. And, we're not seeing it in Troy's case, and we're not seeing it in Summer's either.
I do have an off-the-wall question for you, Audrey.
Okay.
I know you're not a medical doctor, and I know you're not in the forestry division.
No, I'm not.
But you have dealt with plenty of little 5-year-old girls or boys that weigh approximately 40 pounds that go barefooted.
Mhm.
You have walked in the woods in your lifetime.
My backyard is woods, so yes, I have.
Okay, so you know the bramble that I'm talking that's on the ground, the
Mhm.
twigs, the pine cones, whatever.
Yep.
Can you see a 5-year-old, 40-pound baby girl barefooted making a footprint through all that bramble?
Not through the bramble.
Well, do you know of any place that is wooded that doesn't have that on the ground?
No, but I don't know like I don't know that area well enough to say. I mean, I don't know if there's patches where it's just dirt. You know, I don't know.
Well,
That,
in my opinion, the place they're talking about is wooded, completely wooded,
okay.
and it has bramble on the ground. And I don't know if that's the correct word for it, but that's what I've heard all
No,
my
I know
life.
what you're talking about. Yeah, I know what you're talking
Um,
about. Yeah.
I do not see any way that you, even an adult, they might break twigs or something, but they
Mhm.
could not make a footprint through the trash that's on the ground.
No, I agree. I agree with that. If that was the environment and that's the way it was, then no, they wouldn't have been able to do that. I can tell you what probably very likely could have happened because my grandchildren were here just last weekend and they decided they wanted to go walking through the woods. And dummy me, I made everybody put on closed-toed shoes, but we were in shorts because it's Texas and it's freaking hot here right now. And we went way through there, and as we were walking back, my youngest granddaughter looked at me and she said, "Nani, you're bleeding." And I looked down and my legs are covered in scratches. So there's probably my blood back there in the woods on those branches. So I guarantee you, if a child is walking barefoot through stuff like that, those thorns and stuff, that baby's going to be cut up. So,
Right. And the dogs would be hitting on more than just one footprint and a half mile later hitting on another footprint.
right. Well, and if her blood was out there even just a little bit, they would hit on that. So I don't know.
Well, I'm not trying to call all the professionals that said that they were there wrong, but I
No,
grew up in East Tennessee running the woods barefooted.
Yeah. No, I hear you. You know, I don't know because I can't say because I just don't know. But I can say that in the scenario that you proposed with the ground being like that, I mean, that child would have to step so hard because you're not going to leave a footprint on all of the things that's on the ground. You're going to have to get down to the dirt. And no, it would have to be just dirt or clay, whatever they have there. I don't even know.
Red clay is usually, but in the woods, it's not been, the ground has not been scraped yet, so there's normal like topsoil.
Okay. Yeah, it is red clay. We actually went on a vacation to Gatlinburg year before last and went through there, and it was before this case. And I told my husband, I was like, "Man, I wish we would waited. We could have went."
Yeah.
So,
Donb says, I think if Candace was high as a kite when officers got there, that was probably their first red flag. No, I'd say the first red flag was the 911 calls, in my opinion.
yeah, I can't. I'm really anxious to hear those calls. I really am, because I don't buy the whole story of Don saying like he was on with Messenger the whole way back, you know, the way everybody talks about there's no service out there. I don't know. There's just so much about that just, I don't know. Doesn't make sense.
Robin says, she's commenting to Don, she says, exactly. That is why she stayed inside the house, wouldn't go out and talk to the officers because, you know, they would have hauled her butt in. But that's not necessarily true, because it is not against the law to be high. It's against the law to get high. You can walk into a hospital or something and say, I've took this, and this,
And they
And
don't
it's,
arrest you.
yeah, they don't arrest you. They don't call the law. They just deal
Right.
with you medically.
No, I hear you. But you know, who knows? Because if she was high as a kite, then who knows if she used everything that she had? There may have been drugs inside the house. Or did they wait to call 911 so they could get rid of stuff?
Right.
You know, I don't know. Like the fact that she didn't go out, whether she was high or not, just as a mom,
Yeah.
I just can't. I don't understand it.
I do not understand law enforcement by not doing something.
Yeah, I don't know. That it puzzles me. But then, you know, of course, with Troy's case, you know, it hasn't been that long, so I pray we get a resolution before, you know, it doesn't last as long as Summers. But you know, I don't understand the way their actions on certain things, because my first reaction is, well, why didn't you do this? And then I'm like, Audrey, you're not law enforcement. Shut up. You know, you don't know. They know. But there's a lot of things I don't understand.
I have a really good question for you. Hypothetically speaking, if in Texas this situation took place, would Brandis have been allowed to leave the state in the vehicle that the baby was last seen in? Now we understand from Clyda Trent that CPS was involved that first night, the 16th, because they were requesting her take the boys that night because they didn't have any placement for them.
Yeah.
So we know CPS was involved. Would CPS have had something to say about Brandis leaving?
They have no control over that. No authority whatsoever.
What do you think law enforcement would have done in Texas?
It depends. It depends on where they were going with their investigation. If they had interviews with her, if they had checked the vehicle already and done what they were supposed to do. You know, I don't know. I can't believe she left in the first place. I have 8 grandchildren. I can imagine if one of my grandbabies was missing. Not only is my grandbaby missing and I'm, you know, a basket case over that, but my child is missing their child, and I need to be right there with them. I mean, 24/7. So the fact that she left anyway freaks me out. That's weird.
Well, I'm just saying that to me, it seems like somebody knowing, okay, by the time Brandis left town, they knew this child, maybe they didn't officially say it, but they knew at this time this child was not abducted by a stranger. This child has not walked away from the house. So they knew something funky was going on. Why did not somebody say, okay, you were one of the last people to see her. You don't need to be going anywhere until we find out what's going on here.
I don't know. You know, I don't know if legally they can do that.
Legally, they can't. Legally, trust me, I've had it thrown at me. Legally, they cannot say you can't leave town. You know, that's just in movies.
Yeah.
Which means as soon as Dawn gets out, him and Candace can get in a car and drive and never be seen again. Right.
Because legally there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, that's just like when they bring you in for questioning and they don't put you say, or am I under arrest?
Here's a good one. Donb says, have you ever seen police and CPS argue over taking the kids?
No.
That argument supposedly took place. Ronnie Lawson, that's why supposedly it took so long for CPS to get the kids, is because Ronnie Lawson said, no, you're not taking them out of the house. They went up there like 3 or 4 times to get them, and Ronnie Lawson stopped it. Allegedly.
That doesn't make sense to me because, first of all, law enforcement has absolutely no jurisdiction over CPS whatsoever. CPS is a state agency. And they have a commissioner way up high in Tennessee, and you know they have a director over their local area. Law enforcement has absolutely no jurisdiction over the department whatsoever. It's a state agency. So now I'm not going to tell you that somebody couldn't intimidate somebody, but they can't. And okay, let me tell you this. I mean, just look at it like this. To take a child out of a home, you have to have a judge. The judge has to order that. If there's a situation where on a weekend something bad happens in a home and you got to get those kids out, that caseworker that removes those kids on that weekend, she's got 3 days to get a court order from a judge saying that those kids need to be removed. And that means she better have her stuff together. They know that a judge is going to approve it. So a judge has to order it. So if a judge ordered for those kids to be removed, then who is Ronnie Lawson? Because a judge has to do it.
Well, Ronnie Lawson's second generation of sheriff for the last
Now,
40 years.
I know. I get all that. But, looking at it the way things are supposed to go, I understand small town politics and the way things run. My dad was a county commissioner in a small town for 8 years. He ran 2 terms, and I wouldn't let him run a third because it was driving me nuts. But I get all that. But if you look at it, just the overview, a judge has ordered that those kids be removed. So if Ronnie Lawson's going to come in and say, no, you're not taking them, well, then he's going up against a judge.
Right.
So I don't know how true that is, that rumor, because it doesn't make sense to me, because I don't think that they would have had to do 2 or 3 times of going out there. It would have been that day that he says, no, you can't take the kids, and they get in touch with the judge, and the judge says, yes, you are taking the kids.
Okay, one more rumor. It's rumored, like I said, now, Clyda Trent herself, that's the Donwells' mom's best friend before she passed away.
Yeah.
Okay. She herself did an interview, and that's the one that said that they wanted her to take the kids that first night, the 16th. Okay, it was said that Candace had to take the boys and go stay with some woman that she didn't like for those 5 weeks that the boys were still in the home, because they could be there during the day while Dawn was at work. But when Dawn got off work and went home, Candace and the boys had to go sleep at somebody else's house until they found placement for the boys in foster home.
No. They couldn't, if a judge ordered for the children to be removed, they have to be removed right then. I mean, we have caseworkers that sleep in the office with kids because they can't find a placement that day. And then like as an advocate, like, even though like I work out of a certain county in Texas, my kids are placed all over the place in this state. And I mean, sometimes it's hours and hours. Like, my typical takes me about 2 hours, so about a 4-hour there and back. But the state has to take the kids. They can't be like, oh, we just don't have any room, so they're gonna have to stay here at home, and we're gonna do these rules. It don't work like that, because the judge already ordered that they be removed, because the state is not going to take the liability for that. Because what if something happened to those children after that judge had said for them to be removed and they didn't remove them? So I that one's hard to believe.
Okay. Well, that's why we're asking you, sweetheart, so we can get some straight answers.
But now y'all remember, this is all just
hypothetical, alleged.
Right.
Yes.
I don't work in Tennessee. Never have. Never lived there. Lived a lot of places. My husband was 22-year military and lived a lot of places, but Tennessee wasn't one of them. So.
Right. Okay. Why do you think the judge went against his own ruling about Dawn doing rehab? You got any thoughts on that one?
I can't figure that out. I can't. It makes me wonder about, I don't know. I mean, we know he's sober now, but I mean, how long is that going to last when he gets out? Is there anything with Utah? I don't know. that whole thing, I don't know. I can't answer that one
Okay.
because I'm just as confused.
Right. Just to clear something up, it wasn't it wasn't 5 weeks. It was the last few days that they supposedly stayed with someone else. With Candace at someone else's home.
Okay. Someone else's home, like Clyda's or
Yeah, like
somebody-
Clyda's. It was
Okay.
supposedly a woman that Candace couldn't stand, but that was her only option. And I'm assuming that was Clyda.
Okay. They can do like a temporary, like kinship type placement type thing, which even could be a family friend if they're like considered family or whatever. They can do that under certain circumstances, but to have the parent there doesn't make any sense to me, because they're not just removing those children from Dawn. They're removing them from Candace too.
Right.
Otherwise, they would have told Candace, you're going to get your children taken away if you do not move and get away from him. So, but even so, they also put blame on the other parent if they know some type of abuse or something's going on and they don't do anything to be protective of their children.
Right.
So she's going to be held accountable for that anyway. So her being allowed to be in a home after they've already been ordered to be removed from the home doesn't make sense. I'm not going to tell you it didn't happen because I don't know, but it just doesn't make sense. So.
Right. Well, like I said, that's why I was asking your opinion. You are technically the expert in the room, so.
Oh gosh, don't say that.
Okay, you're the professional. I was told once that
I
if you ever
used to
get,
be. I don't work there anymore. Just
if
a
you
drug
ever
dealer.
got paid for a job, then you're a professional at that
Okay.
job. So.
Well, I did get paid for several years. So, okay.
I don't know. Oh, I had another creator was asking me a question.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. I just don't know the answer. Does anybody know the age difference between Andrew Hiltz and Candace Bly? Candace is 40 this year. No, will be 40. She was born in 83, I think. So she turned 39 this year, I believe. I don't know, so I was just asking.
Because I don't know how old Andrew Hiltz is.
That I don't know.
I can't watch him. He creeps me out. I can't watch him. So.
Donb says you don't need drug rehab when you're going to be in prison for the rest of your life. That's not true, Don. We all know that you still get drugs in prison and in jail.
Oh, they managed to get they managed.
Oh, yeah, they definitely manage.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Donb, would you like to come up and speak with this lady? Oh, you're there? Okay. Hello, Genevieve. Well, I've not heard an answer back, honey. We don't know how old Andrew is. And she was, I'm hoping I'm allowed to say this. Candace supposedly was told that she would never get them back as long as she was married to Don.
Okay. That goes back to what I said. There have been occasions where there's an abuser in the home and the other parent is just naive to the abuse or has allowed the abuse to go on and therefore were not protective of their children. And there have been cases where parents have been told, you have a choice to make. You can leave this person and no longer be in a relationship with this person and keep your child, or we'll take your child and put them in foster care. And I can tell you the most sickening thing ever. The majority of the women choose the men.
Right. Amy Lou, who said, So DCS, I believe she said no. DCS would not let Candace stay with the boys while waiting on placement.
I mean, I'm not going to tell you it didn't happen because, you know, strange things happen, but that doesn't make sense to me because it's a judge's order. So, I don't know.
Well, honey, we don't know. That's what we were just talking about. We don't know why he's getting out 4 months early, 3 months early, whatever it is.
I wish, and, you know, I have really strange feelings about the whole Utah thing. I don't know. But I wish they would haul his butt there.
I don't. I hope he stays
Why?
here because not that those girls and those women don't deserve justice. They do. But I want to get Summer's case settled first because if he gets transferred to Utah on all those cases that he's facing time over there, they're not going to send him back. They'll just say, oh, well, we're running it concurrent with Utah.
I don't know. I think they would have to send him back to stand trial.
Well, they might send him back to stand trial, but that don't mean they're going to keep him here on Summer's case.
He can't serve Tennessee time in Utah.
I know. And if he gets 40 years in Utah and has to spend it first, that means he would be spending it consecutive. And if he spends it consecutive, then he's going to be dead and gone.
I hear you, but so tell me your thoughts on that. On if he was tried in Tennessee, convicted, sentenced, but then he had to go finish his stuff in Utah and he died in Utah prison. Tell me your thoughts on what's the difference of him being locked up in Utah and being locked up in Tennessee?
Because, all right, hang on a second. Because although they deserve justice, I agree 100%, and I sympathize with them. I do.
I get it.
But they waited 40 years. I mean, no, I know Mary did go. I know Mary went, and I know the situation with their mom and stuff. But they still waited 40 years.
Yeah, and I don't think they would have ever come forward. Now, I'm just going off of what they're, you know, just what we know, but that they did that because Summer was missing.
Right. I agree.
For her. So, I don't know. This is my fear. Okay, this is my fear. And this is why I said what I said about Utah. This is my fear with the way things are going. What if Tennessee never does anything? What if, God forbid, we never, I don't even want to say those words, but if we don't find her and this turns into a cold case?
I would rather see him locked up somewhere than not at all. Yes, I agree.
That was my reasoning. I don't need to get out.
But I don't either. That's one reason why I was so upset about him not having to do the rehab. But the thing about it is they could keep him here. Hey, Donb.
Hi, Don.
They could keep him here until they decide they're not going to do anything with Summer. And at that point in time, transfer him to Utah and let him do his time.
Yeah, I hear you.
What's up, Don?
Hey, I'm kind of wondering maybe if, let's run this scenario. Do you think the judge may say, let's get this wrapped up before Dawn gets out of jail?
Would that be possible?
Yeah. They can. Because they don't give him an excuse because he went to jail. Some of the things that are would be on a service plan he can do in jail. He could take parenting classes in jail. He's certainly not going to be using alcohol or drugs because he's in jail. And that's, going to be on his service plan. So, they're not going to just give him a pass because he went to jail. Because his behavior is what sent him to jail.
But do you think that they would go ahead and take it to court and try to wrap things up with the boys before he gets out?
Well, if they've met their time frame, they're not going to expedite a time frame. They can't by law. If Tennessee law says you have 12 months, then you have 12 months. So we need to know how many months Tennessee says, and I don't have that answer. I don't know. But usually most states are about 12 months. Some are 18.
Because I'm just wondering, because if, you know, the judge feels like Don's hiding behind his public defenders in the boys' case and not talking to investigators to help find Summer, I just wonder if the judge may say, hey, guys, I don't care, ready or not, come October 26th, if nobody's ready and nothing's been done, I'm making a ruling.
Yeah.
Genevieve says it's 24 months. And
oh my gosh.
And she
I
says
think
there has to be a TPR hearing first.
Well, there you go.
I think ultimately it's up to the judge's discretion. Is it not?
I've never seen a judge not go by the time frame, because
Right.
that's the statute. That's
Yeah.
the statute. Now, I can tell you what I have seen is the attorneys that are assigned to the parents talk to them about relinquishing their rights. And if they relinquish their rights, then they don't have to have a trial, because you actually have a trial, like, so to speak, when you terminate rights. I mean, it's a trial through the family court, family court, but you have to actually go through the motions. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
Ain't gag orders typically tied to trials?
Yes, but in this case, I think that they ordered it because of the investigation.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So if it's 24 months, then we got a while.
Yeah.
Unless they relinquish. And they might relinquish. I've had parents relinquish before because they were tired of getting called for those random drug tests.
Hey, let's talk about the footprint.
Yeah.
Okay, so the dogs followed Summer's scent down to the road and then lost it because of the difference in terrain. Okay, so if there's a footprint on the ground that the dogs hit on, and why couldn't they follow that on out? I think it would be easier to track a scent through the woods if it's not changing terrains, like they said,
Yeah.
from pavement, from dirt to pavement, and that's another question, if there was a footprint, I would say the dog would probably have a pretty good trail to go on.
I would think so. I mean, and also, like, I don't know how long it was. Like, when was this footprint discovered?
That's another thing. Well, it had to be. I mean, dogs were up there 3 hours after 911 was called.
No, it was 4 days. The footprint was discovered on Saturday night.
Oh, okay.
Was that when
Dave Rader came in at 11 o'clock on Saturday night. They apprised him of finding the footprints that night. And so he had to be ready to go the first thing Sunday morning to go up there and look at it.
Okay.
Then you have to ask, how old are they?
Well, or yeah, like,
could Candace have went over to someone's house and Summer went out? She maybe told Summer, hey, go play. So me and him can do whatever. And then when I, like, let's say she went somewhere and allegedly went to go have fun and told Summer to, or, go feel good, and told Summer to go play. And then when I get done, we'll go back to the house. Maybe Summer went off into the woods and played. Candace came out, wee, okay, let's go, Summer. And that's how that footprint got there.
Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea what the footprints. All I do know is what I said, depending on how the ground was.
Yeah.
And if there were like thorns and things like that, then not only would you have a footprint, but you should have some type of scent, bodily scent, like blood. Because I'm telling you, my legs look like I've been through a shredder, and it's just because I walked through the woods behind my house.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. Just from the pictures that I've seen of that area, it looks like I wouldn't want to walk through it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Genevieve says gag orders will only apply to the safety and security pertaining to information on children. So, with this case, a gag order would be deemed applicable. And then, whereas Summer says, it legally says in the state of Tennessee, children that are in a foster home 15 out of 22 months, parental rights can and will be removed.
Well, there you go.
So
There
we
you go.
have to wait until 22 months is up, and if the kids are still there, then they can remove them, whether or not.
Unless they relinquish their rights.
Right.
Now,
And
Audrey,
I have seen that happen.
let me ask you a question here. Now, how long did you work in the system?
I was with the department for about 6.5 years. I was supervisor for about 2. That was the
Okay.
hardest part, being a supervisor of abuse and neglect. That was too much.
Okay. During your time, did you ever come across any cases like this? Oh, you hadn't?
No,
Okay.
not with missing children. No, with the kids
Okay.
being removed, absolutely, but not with
Okay.
a child that went missing.
Okay. 'Cause I'd love to hear from a CPS worker who has experienced this multiple times.
But think
And-
about this. Think about this, Dawn, because I have thought about this.
Uh-huh.
How many times when a child goes missing do the other siblings get removed?
Right. And I want to know normally what's the outcome in cases like this? What statistically, what has been the outcome? Has it been relatives that were involved, strangers? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know of any other cases right offhand except for the West Boys, and we know
Exactly.
also what happened.
Exactly. So, I really thought about that because I was like, wait a minute. Typically, because, wow, you're really punishing a parent. If the parent hadn't done anything, here they've lost their one child and now you're going to come take the rest of their children. You have to have a really good reason to do that. And obviously they did.
Yeah.
So.
Discovering the truth, you have missed quite a good one, but good thing it's going to be on replay. You can always watch again. This is Audrey B and Mr. Donb, of course, but Audrey is a ex-CPS worker, child guardian ad litem, or you're still a guardian ad litem,
I
though,
still
right?
am a guardian ad litem, yes. Yeah, I still do that.
So, but it's for the state of Texas.
That's correct.
Genevieve says, Donb, most DCS caseworkers, active and retired, sign non-disclosure at the time of employment separation.
Not me.
There you go. Well, she did say most.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's in Tennessee too, though.
Yeah. No, we don't have to. But of course, the other thing is I'm not giving you specific
Yeah, you're giving
identifying
general.
information.
Yeah. And
You
I
know,
would
and
think
I've done
maybe
training
I would think
classes
maybe
on-
statistics, statistics wouldn't be protected information.
No, it's like when you're confidential, you're talking about identifying information. That could identify the case, anything that could identify the case or the people involved in the case. Now, I have done training classes and given out hypotheticals all the time because that's how you train people, is by telling them, hey, one time we had this case that this and this and this happened. So if you run into this kind of case, this is what you do. So, because you have to give real life examples when you're training. So that's why I'm comfortable doing this and giving hypotheticals, is because it's really no different than giving a training class. But this is not a training class. This is not official training. So nobody say that.
In your opinion, do you think CPS was called to go to 110 Ben Hill Road that night when officers got there and probably seen
I don't know.
the broad spectrum of things?
I don't know. I don't know if they called CPS immediately. I would have, just based off of the circumstances.
Yeah, because officers ain't CPS workers. So, but at the same time, they have concerns, And I mean, if I was there, I would, and I seen certain, circumstances, I
Yeah.
would probably, say, hey, Ronnie, we probably need to get a worker down here to evaluate this.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing that I think about that situation is everybody was so focused on finding Summer. And I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
truly believe that they thought they would.
yeah.
I think they thought she wandered off.
Everybody, I dropped Miss Audrey's link for her channel in the chat. If y'all would go to her
Oh,
page
thank
and
you. Thank you.
subscribe,
Thank
or at
you.
least check her out, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah,
Now
thank you, guys.
I did hear in the scanner chatter that Ronnie told everybody to make sure that they recheck the house. And it kind of sounded to me like at that point, especially with the 911 call coming in the way it did, we went for a walk, come back, my kid's gone. I think Ronnie was already suspicious. Maybe this ain't a kid that wandered off. And then the cops get there and mom's high as a kite. Well, wait a minute, you're high as a kite, you can barely walk. Where the hell did you go?
She went on a run, not a walk, and there's a big difference in Tennessee, Don.
You can barely stand. Where the hell did you go?
Yeah,
That a lot of red flags probably early on in the investigation.
Sure.
Red flag. No, another red flag. Throwing them in the cop car and taking them down to the police station that night. I mean, do you treat parents that maybe a kid wandered off that way?
Well, they're always going to talk to the parents. They have to, because statistically, if you look at statistics overall, stranger abductions are not that common. Typically, it's some type of familial abduction or foul play.
And I heard they were pretty aggressive with them too. And I'm just thinking that's not the way that if I was an officer, I'd be treating someone if I honestly thought their kid wandered off. I wouldn't be throwing their ass in a cop car and interrogating them at the police station that same night.
Yeah. I think that, I don't know. I think the narrative and the easy thing to do was to go with she's wandered off. Let's go look for her.
Yeah.
And I think that because of that, and maybe I'm just making an excuse, but they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
They should have evaluated those vehicles.
And Don,
go ahead.
Don telling officers, I know she was taken. I know y'all ain't listening to me. She was taken. Then the officers are going to get together and be like, what the hell is he talking about? Okay, let's ask him then who took her. Oh, I don't know. Well, then why are you saying it, dude? And red flag number 2.
Yeah.
And not only that, the spelling test that they just had to keep taking over and over until they passed them,
Yeah.
Have you ever heard tell of a lie detector test being took until it's passed?
No.
I haven't.
I've heard of them giving you another chance, but I don't know.
Well, I know they probably couldn't give Candace one that night because
she was
of issues.
Yeah, she was.
And it also takes, if I'm thinking, someone from the TBI has to administer it.
It is, yes.
And it's going to take time to get them, that would have probably at the earliest happened the next day.
Yeah. I don't know. There's just so much. There's so many strange things that just don't make sense. And hindsight's 20/20, and I'll give them that. And law enforcement are human just like we are. And, but there's so many things that I look at and I'm like, why didn't they do that? Why didn't they do this?
Yeah.
Why didn't, there's just so many things that just don't make sense to me.
It's definitely going to be a learning lesson for everybody, ain't it?
Oh, yeah. Because, I don't know that we've seen one I mean, we've seen some doozies, those of us that are in true crime, but this one's a doozy.
Yeah, it's a rewrite the training manual for sure.
Right.
It's gonna be a learning curve for the CPS workers too, I'm sure.
Oh, you know it. You know
Donb,
it.
while you're up here, let me get I've been talking to you about the Troykhoeler case. What do you think about
The
Troykhoeler, the washing machine?
Worker's mom. I
She was
seen him
at-
talking.
She was at work. She was at work.
Oh, conveniently.
No,
Where was
confirmed.
that?
No, he's the one that left. Okay, mom, because I live not far from there, so I actually went to the house.
Mhm.
Mom was at work, and there's a coworker that confirmed she was with her all night. She works at a hospital. She works at Methodist Hospital in Houston. And
Okay, where was Dad?
he was supposed to be home with the child, and at some point he leaves. And
I
we
could have
don't know where
sworn
he
in the
went.
news interview he said he was at work
People are saying
think.
he was at work.
and he come home.
He
and
works
his
at a
wife was
hospital
gone.
in the kitchen. He's a chef. He works at
Yeah.
a hospital in the kitchen. No, there were articles that said Dad was at work, but then there's people that say that's not true.
Yeah, they'll verify that real quick.
Yeah. The problem that we're having is we're not getting any, but I mean, we're early on. I just now got something from the medical examiner's office where they released, really it was nothing because everything's still pending, but they did release his body to either a funeral home, a crematorium, something to the family.
Yeah. Because
But
if he said he's got to have an alibi. Hey, he's got to, or they're gonna have issues.
My personal opinion, and I hope I'm wrong, because I want this just to be a freak accident, because I never want people to be, especially parents, to be responsible for doing something to their child. And this one really bothers me, and I can tell, and any child bothers me, but this child was a foster child who got adopted. And I can tell you, adoptions are happy days. I have one that's coming up, and I'm so excited for it. It's one of the best days in those children's lives. So this is a child who actually got to experience that. And then boom, this happens. So, I want it to be an accident, but I know it's not. And
the dad left at some point that evening, early night, and then got back right before midnight, and supposedly the door was unlocked and just pushed open.
Yeah.
But he didn't call anybody.
Mm-mm.
It wasn't until 7.
7. He
It
had
wasn't
turned 7 July 11th, so he had just had a birthday.
I'm not leaving my 7-year-old at home alone until midnight.
And nobody called the law or anything until Mom got home at like 4 something that morning.
4 a.m. that morning, and I think the call actually went in at like 5 something.
Wonder when Mom went into work.
I don't know, because I want to know what her schedule is, because this is what I like. Does she get off at 4 a.m. or something, or did she get called by Dad that says, hey, you better get home?
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's strange.
But yeah, I mean, the last place you would look if it was obviously an accident is probably the washer. You know what I mean?
I don't
And
know.
of course, cops are going to do it, but you're going to. I mean, especially it was out in the garage,
It
wasn't
was
it?
in the garage.
Yes.
Yeah, it was in the
I
garage.
mean-
They had just moved into that home. They closed on that house 3 weeks before. So they had just moved in.
Yeah, I mean, I've played hide and seek with my kids in the house before and never thought to check the washer for them.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if the washer was in the garage and they had just moved in, was it even hooked up?
That's a very good question, because somebody, and this could just be a rumor, but someone said that the people who sold the home left the washer and dryer at the house. So there may have been a set that were already hooked up, and these were the ones that they moved with, and they weren't hooked up. I don't know. But then really explain that one, because it would not have locked.
No, it wouldn't have locked.
I mean, unless they
And-
plugged it up. But why would they plug it up?
And I seen the dryer on the news when they were taking it, or the washer when they were taking it out. And you would have to be wadded up to get, if it was accidental, his legs would be sticking out of that washer.
He could have fit in. It's actually, what is so ironic is I have that exact same washer, and I totally freaked when I realized it. he could have fit. It's just a barrel. Okay. There's no agitator. It's just a barrel. He could have fit in there, but it would have been a tight squeeze. And it depends on what kind of shape he was in. Like, did he see? That's what I don't know. Like, what condition was he in when he got, like, if he got in the washer himself and it was an accident, then that's a little strange to me, because he would have really had to roll up in a ball.
Oh,
And
here's
how
the
did the
other
door
thing,
get
too.
locked?
Yeah, because my washer at home doesn't lock unless you have it activated.
Yes, mine too. And it's a button you have to push. It's not like a switch that he could bump with his arm or something. Mine is a button, a flat button. And so that thing is hard.
Yeah.
So I don't
And
know.
I wonder, like, was there any clothes in with him?
I don't know.
I mean, accident. We're going on the accident theory. Maybe he was doing his own laundry, fell in, And now here's a scenario. Now, I've done this before. The water's filling up, right? The lid's locked. You push the button to stop it, so the lid will unlock. Well, no, you got to push the button back for it to start again, though.
Yeah, you do, to lock the lid.
I thought, what if he fell in? Thought, well, I'll just get turned around, get back out.
And the lid jar shut.
It lid shut, but the lid doesn't lock again until you press that start button, and then you hear it go click, and then it starts running water again.
Yep. And that's the way this washer would work, because it's the
Not that I know how to do laundry, guys. This man, I'm not bragging or nothing.
You do. You better anyway.
Oh.
But it just amazes me that they have not made any arrests. They took those two parents in, questioned them, and released them. Catch and release.
Yeah,
they're probably waiting on the medical examiner's finding.
They are, because they have everything pending right now. They have a death certificate, but it just says undetermined. It's everything's pending.
Yeah, I mean, and it's tricky too, because if it was blunt force trauma, that would come out like any kind of trauma would come out really quick from the medical examiner. So that kind of got me scratching my head.
Right, but did the washer run?
Yeah.
Well,
then you would have somebody put him in there and ran the washer. But then what if it was an overdose? Like you gave him something?
Yeah.
Then you got to wait on toxicology, and that takes forever.
Oh yeah, like what if allegedly, what if someone in the house was dealing and something was laced with something?
Yeah, I don't know. This boggles my mind. Just boggles my mind. That's how come I had to drive out there that day. I just went and put a teddy bear by the mailbox, because it just breaks my heart.
Oh, wow. Discovering Truth is asking somebody a question. How do you think it would affect a hormonal teenage boy that is kept secluded, homeschooled with no social life, and all pets end up mysteriously dying? I believe we're talking about Damien, right?
Oh, I don't want to touch that.
I am so lost.
Damien, Jody Sue's son.
Oh, I'm not. I'm with Audrey. I'm not touching it.
I just, that whole situation, that's, yeah.
Well, hey guys, I'm down to 5%. I'm gonna have to cut it short. I did, you offered, so I figured I'd come up and join you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dawn. Good to talk to you.
Hey guys, show these girls some love.
Thank you. Have a good night, Dawn.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.
Rebecca says toxicology report takes a minimum of 12 weeks.
I know it takes forever, because when my brother passed away, we had to wait for toxicology forever, and it drove me insane waiting. So I know it takes forever.
The Real Rockin' Robin says, in my opinion, tests take too long. No, they have to be done, but good Lord, months.
Well, and just like here, Harris County, it's Houston, and I can tell you that medical examiner's office, they are so backlogged. I mean, we have murders every day in this in Houston. And so it's crazy. Like, I was shocked to even get that information, because when I sent that email, she emailed me back and she said, there is no time frame. And I thought, well, I'm not going to hear from anybody for a long time. And then the next day, at least I got the report that they put him in the database, but it's still pending.
Right.
But we do know they've released his body. So.
Well, I mean, at least we have that much.
Mm-hmm. And I'm digging and digging and digging everything I can to see if I can find out, are they going to have a service or what? Because if they have a service, I'm gone. But I bet the family's not going to make that public, because they've already, like I said, they had to lock down their social media because of, you know, comments they were getting, and then people going on news sites and stuff leaving comments. And so they're not going to want the public to be aware. They'll probably do a private thing. So
Quick fix screen is quick development toxic screen. Why is it echoing? Hang on one second. I'm getting an echo of my own, and I don't know why. Okay, now it's gone. Okay, quick fix screen is quick develop toxic screen, tissue, etc. Takes a while because only a couple of labs that do them resource duty our channel. Resource duty our channel. Okay, duty wrong.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So that's good to know.
Yes, thank you, Vet Girl. And I wasn't trying to ignore you when you came in. But Miss Audrey she has had me engrossed in everything that she's had to say this evening.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it. I appreciate you inviting me.
Well, like I said, I shared your channel on my community tab. I've told everybody to go to it, subscribe, and I would love to have you back on the panel again anytime you want to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And if, you know, as I get information on Troy, I'll let you know. And maybe we can do a follow-up on that. And then anytime you just want to chit chat, you know, just let me know.
Okay. Well, guys, it's been 2 hours and 30 minutes. So I think we're going to give Miss Audrey a rest and let her jump off here. And I thank each and every one of you guys for showing up.
Yeah.
And I hope we
all
have learned something in here today.
I hope so. I appreciate you all.
Well, we appreciate you, Miss Audrey. Everybody, remember to pray for the case, pray for the kids, pray for patience for ourselves, because we're going to need it.
Yep.
And we'll see you all later. Bye, Miss Audrey.
Bye, guys. Y'all have a great evening.